Israel struck the Jabalia refugee camp in northern Gaza yesterday, and the excuse that they gave was that they warned civilians to leave, as if they had the means to leave. If they had the means to leave, of course, they would not be in a refugee camp in the first place. But I made the point that in warning civilians to leave, are you not also warning Hamas to leave? You know,
Right.
I don't really
Right.
understand the logic. If you're going to warn people you're about to bomb somewhere, aren't you also warning the terrorists that you want to catch off guard and kill? That leads people to believe.
Well, don't forget, they're the world's most moral army.
Yeah, especially considering that they're the world's most moral army. It seems like a very weird choice for the world's most moral army to make. So weird that it leads many people to believe that this is about something else, something other than eliminating Hamas, that this is all about taking the remaining land from the Palestinian people that is currently Gaza and swallowing it and absorbing it into the Israeli state, as they have been doing for decades. We've all seen the graphics of the evolving map, right, where Israel has expanded their land over the past several decades. And turns out, this is according to the Associated Press now, very mainstream outlet, the Standard, really, that everybody goes off of, the local and state papers print based on this. An Israeli ministry, in a concept paper, proposes transferring Gaza civilians to Egypt's Sinai. An Israeli government ministry has drafted a wartime proposal to transfer the Gaza Strip's 2.3 million people, 2.3, so all of them, not some of them, not the ones who are displaced, no, all of them. They have drafted a wartime proposal to transfer the entire population of Gaza to Egypt's Sinai Peninsula, drawing a condemnation from the Palestinians and worsening tensions with Cairo. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office played down the report compiled by the intelligence ministry as a hypothetical exercise. Oh, sure. Sure.
It was like college bullshit session.
Listen, I'm Jewish, okay? My brother is a Jewish lawyer. We got better lawyers than this. You can't come up with a better statement than that. A hypothetical exercise. This is a time of war. You have time to be coming up with hypothetical wartime plans, really, in this moment of extreme urgency where you're fighting for your life, as you claim. You have time to draft up hypothetical exercises, a concept paper. But its conclusions deep into
I just want to point out, while we're paused for a second, this is not the first leak. There was one that came from a think tank that was run by Netanyahu's former director of their version of the FBI that proposed exactly the same thing. So this looks to me a lot like after 9/11, Cheney and company had their proposals. They had the Patriot Act in like 2 days because that shit was their wish list that had been sitting at the bottom of a drawer since the Nixon administration.
Right, they just needed a pretext for it.
That's it. They had that stuff all ready to go. That's what this is. That's why they already have this written.
Yeah, but its conclusions deepened long-standing Egyptian fears that Israel wants to make Gaza into Egypt's problem, and revived for Palestinians memories of their greatest trauma, the uprooting of hundreds of thousands of people who fled or were forced from their homes during the fighting surrounding Israel's creating in 1948. That's, of course, the Nakba. The document is dated October 13th, 6 days after Hamas militants killed more than 1,400 people in southern Israel and took over 240 hostage in an attack that provoked a devastating Israeli war in Gaza. It was first published by Sikha Mekomit, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, a local news site. In its report, the intelligence ministry, a junior ministry that conducts research but does not set policy, offered three alternatives, quote, to effect a significant change in the civilian reality in the Gaza Strip in light of the Hamas crimes that led to the Sword of Iron War. That's what they're calling it now, I guess. The document's authors deem this alternative to be the most desirable for Israel's security. The document, There we go. The document proposes moving Gaza's civilian population to tent cities in northern Sinai, then building permanent cities and an undefined humanitarian corridor A security zone would be established inside Israel to block the displaced Palestinians from entering. The report did not say what will become of Gaza once its population is cleared out. Well, what do you think will become of Gaza once its population is cleared out? They would just absorb it into
Israel.
Of course. Of course. Egypt's foreign ministry did not immediately respond to a request for comment, but Egypt has made clear throughout this latest war that it does not want to take in a new wave of Palestinian refugees. So, look, once again, I wasn't going into this as blind as I was Russia-Ukraine because I've mentioned I'm a millennial. I'm a generation behind Russell. So growing up, the Middle East wars were the wars that I had to pay most attention to. Russell is a Cold War kid, so he was a little more steeped in that history than I was. But I still called this just exactly the same as I called the Russia-Ukraine war. It was very obvious to me as soon as this happened on October 7th that Israel was going to use this as the pretext to do what it has wanted to do since 1948, which is take over the entire region. And if that means killing all of the Palestinians, they are willing to do that. Of course, nice people that they are, noble army that they are, they'd rather just relocate them and put them in 10 cities and make them Egypt's problem. But if they have to kill them all, they're more than happy to, obviously. So this has been the goal the whole time. It was very obvious from day one. Again, I knew more about this than Russia-Ukraine, far from an expert. You don't have to be an expert. You need a couple of brain cells, you need an ounce of common sense, and you need to be able to tell yourself the truth. You need to be emotionally mature enough to tell yourself the truth and allow yourself to absorb it. This was obviously the game plan all along. And by all along, I don't mean since October 7th. I mean since 1948, 1967. Yes. This has been the plan. This is the plan. They are fast-tracking it now. And the only thing that can stop them is mass consciousness that demands that power be wielded to stop them. And we are, thankfully, knock on wood here, starting to see some of that, which we'll get to later in the show.
Yeah, and the more you think about it, the more you look at the implications, the more you look at the nature of the Israeli state, you can see why they sabotaged efforts to have the two-state solution that they will claim that they want. Right. Because if these Palestinians got a state, well, now they have standing in the international community, right? Now they have ambassadors around the world. Now they have trade relationships. Now they have a real army. Now they might have a supplier of arms. Now they have power. Now they have power. This is like the landlord that doesn't want to let you buy.
Right.
Right? They never wanted them to have that kind of independence and dignity and ability to challenge their agenda. So all of their claim about wanting a two-state solution has been revealed to be total bullshit. They don't want a two-state solution. They sabotaged it when they had the opportunity to have one. And, we keep hearing about how Israel is a democracy. Okay, well, Netanyahu is their leader, right? So they bear some responsibility for the actions for those who try to separate the Israeli population. And I understand there are people in Israel who don't approve of Netanyahu, but we're talking democracy. Enough did to have kept him in power all these years. Enough of that population supports it to keep him in power. So there is some responsibility there, just like as an American, we bear some responsibility for George Bush, right? I mean, not personally. I didn't vote for him, but as a nation.
We bear responsibility for Joe Biden. We bear responsibility for what's going now. That's why we are in the streets now.
Right. Good point.
Because this is happening in our name and on our dime, whether we like it or not.
All right. And it is for Israelis of goodwill to do everything they can to shut down this government, which, they say it's a democracy, but we see, I saw an article, their chief of police, threatening Palestinians who say anything for Palestinian rights to send them to Gaza, ones who live inside of Israel proper, most of whom are descended from people who managed to stay there during the Nakba and after. It's just this atrocity of a historical proportion being played out in a world with social media and smartphones. And in the end, you just can't do Wounded Knee in broad daylight like this.
Please clap.